everybody, John from Low Budget Outdoors. Today's video is going to be a do-it-yourself video on building a game cart. I've already built one of these. It's 24 inches wide. I use it for hauling my 50-pound two-person ladder stand out. 24 inches is a little wide, so today I'm going to build an 18-incher for basically hauling some light gear, camping gear, and hauling my deer back. So it's real simple, just takes some simple tools, and doesn't take very long to make, maybe a couple hours. It's pretty enjoyable, and I hope you like it, and I hope you make one. So let's get to it. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we got our 1/2-inch 10-foot sticks of EMT here. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to pull one aside, and I'm going to measure it 24 inches. Because I want the bottom part to be 2 feet long. So to make up for the crimp part, we're going to add 2 inches. So we're going to go 26 inches. And now what we're going to do is we're going to bend it. Because I always bend the first piece, and then my measurements are a lot more accurate that way, and you'll see why. Okay, so I got my piece right here. And what I'm going to do, we flip it around. So now, where'd the mark go? There it is. So my mark's right here. So what I'm going to do is put it in the vise as level as possible. Right at the mark. So the mark's lining up with the end of the vise, and I've got the long end. That's the one part we're going to use because of, you know, leverage and everything. And you don't need to try to have the tube level. You don't. It doesn't need to be perfect because this stuff bends really easy. So now what I do is I go ahead and bend it. See how it bends? Give it just a little pull to make it square, and it'll pull it through the vise like that. Now remember, this is my lower part of the stand of the cart. So I'm going to want it 24 inches long, and I'm going to want it 18 inches wide. So the base, this is the lower half of the cart. So what I do is I measure from the outside of the tube, and this isn't rocket science. Everything doesn't have to be perfect. And I mark it 18 inches, and then go back to the vise and bend it again. Got it lined up with my mark. This seems pretty level. I'm going to bend it again. I get it bent, I go a little bit more, it pulls the tube, get it semi-square. Alright, so we've got the two bends done for the lower half of the cart. So now what I do is I measure from on the inside, and it's 26 inches. So then I measure from the inside on this one and mark the line. This is to cut it. It's not rocket science, guys. You don't have to be completely exact, and you'll see why. Okay, now remember I told you to add the 2 extra inches? This is why, because what we're going to do is we're going to squash these ends flat so that we can drill them for the axle. So just measure them up 2 inches. And then take it back to the vise. So now, what I do is I have just a small little square with a level on it. It doesn't have to so much be level this way. but it should be level this way. Let me move the camera back a little bit so you can get an idea. Camera. I use my cell phone to film these. That's how high tech we are over here at Low Budget. So that works really good. I use a special leveling device. It's called a motorcycle helmet. Works really good with my vise for some reason. So I got it at the 2-inch mark in the vise. I've got it level. So now I just crush it. And it's pretty neat because when you do this, it smashes it almost perfectly in the middle. Just like that. Let me bring the camera over here. You can see how it smashes it just right. And this is where we're going to be drilling it for the axle. So I'm going to do the other side, and then I'm going to cut the top part, and then we'll start assembling it. Alright, so I did my first bend for the top part. Now you have to decide if you want your top piece wider or narrower. That way when you collapse it, it collapses in on each other, and I'll show you that towards the end. So I like to have my my outside piece a little bigger. So when they fold together, you'll see why. So I'm going to go ahead and measure it 19 inches. That gives it a 1/2 inch on each side. 1/2 inch pipe, get it? So I'm going to go ahead and measure that 19 inches and bend it, and we'll be just about ready for assembly after I squatch the ends and drill. Okay, I just wanted to show you this real quick. It's really cold in here, my hand starter, so I took one of the cut off pieces. I've measured this, made sure the cross section is level so that the crimps are pretty much even. And then I put my new fangled, see, I just love this do-it-yourself stuff. You get all kinds of, I made my own do-it-yourself bending tool here. Look at that. I'm not even grunting. Probably won't even have to take as much ibuprofen when I'm done with this. Go figure. So now I got done bending all this and crimping all this, and I noticed that these two sections aren't perpendicular. They're not exactly right. So all you do is you just put it back in the vise, and it bends real easy. And then that piece over there isn't flat to this, and I just bend that a little bit. See, no special tools needed. Do it yourself. Now for mine, for drilling the axle, mine is going to have a 1/2 inch axle. So I have to drill the holes to fit the 1/2 inch axle. So I'm using a step drill, which works really well. Alright, so I've kind of put it together. I ground the edges so that I don't cut myself, and you know, just to make it look kind of pretty. I slid an old axle in there. I actually bought the axle material over at Rural King and left it in the shopping cart when I unloaded all my other stuff. I bought a new heater for my garage. I was so excited, I guess I forgot it. But basically that's what it'll look like when you slide it through. So you can see here, this is all like a hinge, like a big hinge. And then now all we really have left to do, as far as the cart goes, is make the two side supports. And basically this is the 24-incher that I made. This is what the side supports look like. They screw down at one end, and then I put wing nuts on the other end. And you just, where'd that wing nut go? Oh, there it is. And then basically you just put this up there and put it in the wing nut, and that's your support for your cart, so that you can fold it in half and make it really small. So I'll go ahead and finish up with getting the axle ready, show you how to make the spacers and everything, and we'll have us a nice little game cart. So now what I've done, I don't know if you can see in there, but I've made 1/2 inch spacers that go in between the two sections. Well, it's hard to do with your camera. Right here. If you don't want this stuff to rattle, what you might want to do is put some silicone inside that tube when you finally assemble it, and then it won't rattle. And then I made an 18.5-inch spacer that goes in the middle to keep it from smashing together. One of the reasons I'm doing that is because I don't have enough axle material, because I left the axle material in the cart. And the second reason is I want this to be really stout so that if I drop a heavy deer in it, it doesn't pull these sections in when it sits on the chicken wire or fence material like I have here. I mean, it shouldn't do it. So now I'm pretty much done with it except for the support. So, all right, let's talk about the wheels you're going to use for a second. I was thinking bicycle wheels, like a little 16-inch wheel for a kid's bike. You could use those for wheels. These are some old lawnmower wheels that I had laying around. They use a 1/2-inch axle and they're really easy to use. They're held on with a carter pin. So that's one of the things you're going to want to think about when you're building your cart, is what kind of wheel you're going to use. This is an 11-inch wheel and it works pretty good. The reason I like the 16-inch or the 14-inch wheels is because it gives you more clearance when you're going over stuff. Sometimes you'll want to straddle an old branch or something that's on the ground. The smaller wheels make it a little easier to go over the branch sideways, but if you're going to straddle it, that's the other way. Also, I like the lower wheel for the smaller carts, so that if you get the deer on there or whatever and it's real heavy and it's, you have the head up here, the head down towards the bottom of it, it might want to tip over. So the lower you are to the ground, the less it'll tip, if you know what I mean. So that's my section on the wheels. So it's kind of up to you on what wheels you want to use. You might have something laying around, or you might go to a garage sale and find some really nice kid's bike for $5, and there you go. All right, so now I'm going to take my leftover tube here, and I'm going to set my cart up basically how I'm going to want it when it's put together with the supports. And the way I do that is I use this high-tech tool called a car jack, and I get that set over there. I start by putting the longer end, which is the end I'm going to carry, or I'm going to pull. I start putting that about waist high. Now remember, my wheels are 11 inches, so I'm figuring 6 inches from the ground up. We'll put this at about waist high. Then your back section, you want it at less than a 90-degree angle. I just kind of eyeball it like that. And the reason why you want to do that is it makes whatever you put in there is going to go fit in there. It's going to be, the center of gravity is going to be the axle, so it's going to balance this cart. I'm building this strictly for small stuff, game, 100-pound, 140-pound deer. It should handle it no problem. Also to put gear in and stuff like that. So I have a piece of leftover tube right here, and it basically measures 4 feet. So I'm automatically going to make my supports 2 feet each. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tape measure and find 2 feet, and I'm going to figure out where those supports are going to go. So you want to make it even. So basically it's going to be about right there. So I'm going to leave my finger there and measure it up from the axle, and that makes it 15 inches. So if I go up 15 inches, that should be about right. Let's try that. So there's 15 inches. And there's 15 inches. So that's about, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut this in half, fit it on there. Then what you do is you squish the ends again, and you squish the ends 2 inches. And the reason you do 2 inches is to make up for the roundness of the 2 sections. So I'll go ahead and get on that and show you that. Whew, I'm getting old. A little tip. Here's a little tip when you're making your support. So I squished this side already, the 2 inches that I want to go, and I want these to be as close as I can to perpendicular. So I put the other one side in at 2 inches, and here's my old handy dandy level again. And what I'll do is I'll put that on there. I'll take a pair of vice grips or whatever you have, and then I'll slowly turn it, holding this up against here to get level, and there it is. Then just squish it, do the same to the other one so that you're nice and flat so you can drill your holes. Okay, so the supports are crimped and they're ground down or smoothed off. And so what I've done is I measured a 1/2 inch from the end to here and a 1/2 inch from the end to here, and that's where I'm going to drill for my screws. If you remember earlier, I kind of figured out where I wanted it on the ground. It was basically from the center of the axle 15 inches this way and 15 inches this way. So I kind of mocked it up from the center of the hole to the axle 15 inches and 15 inches. That'll do it. I don't like the angle that much. I want a little bit more of an angle, so I'm going to straighten it out just a little bit. There we go. I'm going to redo this now. So now I've just done it again. I kind of make this all a perfect triangle. And you see why you want to flatten the ends for 2 inches, because it's flat past the roundness of the section, and that way it lays flat on there. So let's measure this and see where it's at. So now we're at 14 inches and 14 inches. Alright, so I went ahead and used my step drill to drill my first hole. Of course, you always want to center punch anywhere you're going to drill on the round bar. You already know that, but I just felt like I should probably say it. And then I take that off. And then I take another drill bit about the size of the first one on the step there, and I drill all the way through. And I put the step drill back on and drill the one on the other side. You can do it your own way. That's just the way I prefer to do it. It comes out better for me. But if you pre-drill the holes, like if you draw it up or something, you got all your measurements just right, or you want to make one exactly the size, exactly the way this one's made, you can use my measurements. But you can always use something like this. You know, but I definitely highly recommend that you bend it before you drill it, because you know when you bend it, you get it a 1/2 inch off and everything, and then you got this weird cattywampus cart, and that's the time you're going to run into another hunter. He's going to look at that, and you're going to say, he's going to say, "Well, that thing looks pretty jacked up." Yeah, well, that's the way John over at Low Budget told me to make it, and it'll make me look bad. So don't make me look bad. All right, so here's the basic frame after I drilled the holes for the support. You can see how it's coming together. Next, I want to talk about the axles. So normally, you would slide the axle through the holes that you made. If you have a welder, you can tack the inside or the bottom support to the axle. That'll help keep it from rattling. And then what you want to do is put a washer on the outside. I tack welded the washer too. And then you put your wheel on there, you measure it, you put your wheel on there, and then you drill the hole to put the carter pin in. You can use all thread with a nylock nut. And just screw it on enough so that the wheel turns. There's all different kinds of things you can do to make it a little bit different. So I'm going to go ahead and put the wheels on it, and then show you real quick how I'm going to put that fencing material on there, and we'll pretty much be done. Another thing that I'll talk about is painting or covering it too. I got some neat ideas about that. Make it look like a hot rod or something. Here it is. So I bought this roll of duct tape for like $3 at the Dollar General. Look at that, it matches my shirt. And what I did basically was I covered it. I took the piece long ways like this, rubbed it on there, and just rounded it. Now there's a little bit showing on there on the bottom, but I just have that on the bottom. And I don't know, it looks pretty cool. And then I ended up putting a red, I forgot what they call these, the red strap. I put that on there so I could find it, because I had it in a bush one day and I kind of lost it. And so what I'll do is I'll put a couple of these on there, and so that I can kind of put it around my equipment or my deer or whatever. And then I put a couple bungee cords on it too. And that's pretty much it. You can see how I zip tied the fencing material on there. And then you zip tie I used two separate pieces and attach it to the axle. So I made one for this bottom section and then one for the top section. The top section, you leave it off, some of it, you know, whatever distance you want, so you can put your hands through there or whatever. Sometimes part of my tree stand goes through there. But that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, go ahead and email me. Feel free to get a hold of me and I'll try to answer them. And I'll also, down in the description, I'll put a list of all the materials that I used. And there's no reason why you can't have a nice game stand for cheap. I think I have $15, like $15 into it or something like that. So, and it was kind of fun doing this with you guys. I mean, it's cool being in here with your buddies and working on your bikes or your do-it-yourself projects. So, I hope you enjoyed this. Let other people know. Let them know about the channel. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and also on what's that other one? Instagram. And just let people know that we're out there. It's Low Budget Outdoors. My name's John, and happy hunting.